He never thought a quiet morning could change his life. The house stood on a calm street, with clean sidewalks and small trees lining the road. It was not a big house, but it was his. He had worked for years to buy it. Long shifts, missed holidays, and many sacrifices had gone into those walls. Every corner of the home carried a memory, late-night dinners, peaceful weekends, and dreams of growing old there. He was a simple man. He woke up early, went to work, paid his bills on time, and never caused trouble. He greeted neighbors with a nod or a smile. He believed that if you followed the rules, life would leave you alone. For a long time, that belief felt true. The neighborhood looked perfect from the outside. Fresh paint on houses, lawns trimmed neatly. A sign at the entrance read, "Private Community." That sign belonged to the HOA. At first, the HOA felt harmless. Just letters about trash days, parking rules, and lawn care. He did not think much about it. He followed the rules without question. But over time, things started to feel strange. New board members joined the HOA. Their letters became colder. Their rules became stricter. Fines were sent for small things, a trash bin left out too long, a plant that looked out of place. He paid the fines quietly. He did not want problems. He thought staying silent was the safest choice. One morning, as he stepped outside to leave for work, he saw something on his door. A yellow paper. It was taped right in the center, impossible to miss. He stood still. His heart started beating faster. Slowly, he pulled the paper off and read it. His hands began to shake. The notice said he had violated HOA rules. It said his property was non-compliant. The last line was the hardest to read. You have 72 hours to sell your home. He read it again. And again. 72 hours. 3 days. That made no sense. He had not changed anything about the house. No warning. No meeting. No chance to fix anything. Just an order. He felt confused, then angry, then scared. Inside the house, the silence felt heavy. The walls that once felt warm now felt fragile. He sat down at the kitchen table, the notice still in his hand. Questions filled his mind. Where would he go? How could he sell a home in 3 days? Why was this happening to him? He tried to calm himself. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone would explain. Later that day, he spoke to a neighbor. The neighbor avoided eye contact. He said quietly that others had received similar warnings before, but no one talked about it openly. People were afraid of the HOA, afraid of fines, afraid of losing their homes. That fear made him feel even more alone. That evening, he checked his mailbox. More letters from the HOA. Legal words. Cold sentences. No names. No phone number to call. Just pressure. As night fell, he barely slept. Every hour felt shorter than the last. The countdown had already begun. The next day, he attended an HOA meeting. The room was small but tense. Board members sat at the front, calm and confident. When he spoke, they interrupted him. They said the decision was final. They told him rules were rules. No empathy. No explanation. When he asked for proof, they smiled. That smile stayed in his mind long after the meeting ended. As he walked back home, something inside him changed. Fear was still there, but now, there was something else. A quiet determination. He realized the HOA expected him to panic, to give up, to sell fast and leave. But he was not ready to walk away. That night, he placed the notice on the table and stared at it. The house was quiet. Outside, the street lights glowed softly. Everything looked normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. He whispered to himself, there must be a way. And without knowing it yet, that moment marked the beginning of a fight that would shock the HOA, the neighborhood, and everyone who believed power always wins. The clock kept ticking. 72 hours had started. And this was only the beginning. The next morning felt heavier than the last. He woke up before sunrise, his mind already racing. The notice sat on the kitchen table like a threat. He made coffee but could not drink it. Every sip tasted bitter. Outside, birds sang as if nothing was wrong. But inside his chest, everything felt tight. He decided to read the notice again, slowly this time. Each line felt cold and distant. Words like violation, authority, and enforcement stood out. There was still no clear reason. No date. No proof. Just a command. Sell the house. Leave. Do it fast. He checked the clock. 60 hours left. He called the HOA office number listed online. The call went to voicemail. He left a calm message and asked for a meeting. No one called back. He sent an email. Then another. Both were answered with the same short reply. Decision stands. That reply made something snap inside him. He went through old HOA letters and emails, spreading them across the table. He noticed something strange. The fines had increased after new board members took control. The tone had changed too. It felt personal, not professional. He wondered if others had been treated the same way. By noon, he decided to visit a real estate agent. The agent listened carefully, then shook her head. Selling in 72 hours was impossible. Even worse, HOA pressure scared buyers away. She had seen it before. People lost homes that way. Quietly. Quickly. He thanked her and walked out, feeling smaller than before. On the way home, he saw an older man sitting on a porch. The man waved him over. They talked in low voices. The man said he had once received a warning too. He had fought back, but it cost him money and sleep. In the end, he moved away. That story stayed with him. Back home, he locked the door and sat down. Panic tried to take over, but he forced himself to breathe. He remembered something his father once told him. When power pushes you, stop running and start reading. That advice now felt important. He opened his laptop and searched for the HOA rules. Page after page filled the screen. The language was boring, slow, and full of small words that had big meaning. Hours passed as he read. He took notes. He highlighted lines. His fears slowly turned into focus. Then he found it. A clause that explained enforcement limits. A rule that said homeowners must be given time to fix issues. Another line that required clear proof and written warnings before forced sales. His heart beat faster. The notice on his door had skipped all of that. It was not legal. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling. For the first time since the notice arrived, he felt hope. Small but real. The next day, he returned to the HOA office in person. The receptionist looked surprised to see him. He asked to speak to a board member. After a long wait, one finally appeared. The board member smiled politely, but looked annoyed. He calmly asked for proof of violation. The board member avoided his eyes. He asked for written warnings. None were shown. When he mentioned the rule he had found, the smile faded. The meeting ended quickly. That afternoon, new letters arrived in his mailbox. The tone was sharper. Fines were added. Threats were stronger. It felt like punishment for asking questions. But now, fear no longer controlled him. That evening, he organized his notes. He saved emails. He took photos. He recorded dates and times. He knew he needed help, but he also knew one thing for sure. He was not selling his home. The countdown continued. 48 hours remained. And the HOA had no idea that their pressure had pushed him in the wrong direction. He was no longer running. He was preparing. That night, he slept with papers beside his bed, not from fear, but from purpose. He understood the risk, yet felt steady. The house no longer felt fragile. It felt worth defending. Tomorrow, he would take the next step, one that would change everything for both sides. There was no turning back. The third day began with rain tapping softly against the windows. He watched the drops slide down the glass and felt time slipping with them. 48 hours had passed. Only 24 hours remained. The pressure was real, but his fear was no longer loud. Something stronger had taken its place. He dressed slowly and made a short list on paper. Evidence. Advice. Next move. First, he visited the public records office during his lunch break. He searched HOA filings, board changes, and past complaints. The clerk helped him quietly, as if she had seen this story before. What he found surprised him. Several homeowners had filed complaints against the same board members. Most cases ended without action because people gave up. He did not plan to give up. Back at home, he knocked on a few doors. Some neighbors stayed silent. Others opened just enough to speak. A young woman said her parents moved after endless fines. A retired couple said they felt watched all the time. Fear lived behind many curtains in that neighborhood. Each story added weight to his resolve. In the afternoon, he met with a small legal clinic. The lawyer listened without interrupting. She read the notice, then the rules he had printed. Her expression changed. She said the HOA had crossed a serious line. Forced sale notices required strict steps. None were followed. She told him something important. They expect silence. They depend on fear. Those words stayed with him. She advised him to document everything and warned that timing mattered. He did not need to file immediately, but he needed to be ready. The lawyer handed him a checklist and wished him luck. When he returned home, a new notice was taped to his door. This one warned of daily penalties. The language felt aggressive, almost angry. It confirmed what he already knew. The HOA was trying to scare him into leaving before the deadline. Instead of panic, he felt clarity. He set up his phone and recorded a short video of the notice on his door. He photographed the tape marks. He saved the message. Then he checked his email. Another cold response from the HOA. Short, sharp, final. That night, he sat at the kitchen table with all his papers neatly stacked. The rain had stopped, and the house felt calm. He realized the HOA believed they were invisible, that no one would question them, that they could pressure one man and move on. They were wrong. He drafted a formal letter. Calm, clear, polite. He quoted the rules they had broken. He asked for proof. He requested an immediate pause on enforcement. He sent it by email and certified mail. Then he waited. Hours passed. Midnight came. Still no reply. As the final morning arrived, sunlight filled the room. Only 6 hours remained. He felt the weight of that number, but it no longer crushed him. He had done what most people were too afraid to do. He had pushed back. At 9 a.m., his phone rang. An unknown number. He answered carefully. A board member spoke. The voice sounded controlled but tense. The board member said there had been a misunderstanding. They asked for time. They suggested a private discussion. He listened quietly. Then he said something simple. He said all communication must be in writing. The call ended quickly. Minutes later, an email arrived. The deadline was under review. Enforcement was temporarily paused. No apology. No admission. But the threat had weakened. He leaned back and closed his eyes. Relief washed over him, but he did not celebrate. He understood this was not over. The HOA would not back down easily. They had power, money, and pride. But now he had something too. Leverage. The countdown had stopped, but the fight had truly begun. He stood up and walked through his home, touching the walls, the door frames, the windows. This place was still his. For now, he knew the next step would be bigger. Public. Legal. Permanent. As he looked outside, he saw neighbors watching from their windows. For the first time, they were not just afraid. They were curious. And curiosity was dangerous for people who ruled through fear. The pause from the HOA felt temporary, not safe. He knew pressure would return stronger. He spent the morning organizing every document, photo, email, and note. Each page told a clear story of force, fear, and control. He prepared for resistance, not mercy, because power rarely apologizes when challenged. Directly. By afternoon, a certified letter arrived. The HOA demanded access to his property for inspection. The tone was polite, but the message was sharp. Refusal would bring penalties. He recognized the tactic. They wanted entry, not answers. He replied calmly, requesting dates, reasons, and legal authority in writing only. Always. That evening, he received calls from unknown numbers. Voicemails sounded friendly, almost caring, yet carried threats beneath soft words. He saved them all. He realized intimidation works best when hidden. Transparency was their weakness. Silence was their shield. He would remove both by documenting everything: pauses, tones, timing, dates, proof. The next day, neighbors began asking questions. Rumors moved faster than notices. He shared facts, not anger. He showed letters, explained rules, and spoke calmly. Fear softened into interest. Interest became quiet support. One neighbor offered old emails. Another shared meeting recordings. Patterns emerged. The board targeted voices, not violations. With permission, he compiled a timeline. Dates aligned. Threats followed questions. Fines followed refusals. The structure was clear. He consulted the lawyer again. She nodded and suggested filing. She warned of delays, costs, stress. He accepted them. The alternative was surrender. He chose process over panic, patience over fear, truth. Court papers were prepared carefully. Each claim cited rules. Each exhibit matched evidence. He filed quietly, without announcements. The HOA learned days later. Their response was loud. Letters multiplied. Inspections were scheduled. Deadlines returned. But now, a court number appeared on every page. Pressure changed shape. Confidence shifted. Control slipped. At mediation, the board appeared certain. They spoke of standards and harmony. He spoke of steps skipped, warnings missing, rights ignored. When documents surfaced, voices lowered. Smiles faded. The mediator asked hard questions. Answers drifted. Silence stretched. The room felt smaller. Truth occupied space. Power shrank. Fear moved. Sides changed. Outside, rain returned. He waited alone, steady. He thought about neighbors, futures, fairness. He remembered the yellow paper. It no longer ruled him. The house felt strong. Walls held resolve. Floors held patience. He knew outcomes take time. He trusted steps. He trusted records. He trusted daylight over shadows. Always. Days later, motions arrived. The HOA asked dismissal. The judge asked clarity. Timelines mattered. Notices mattered. Proof mattered. The court ordered discovery. Emails spilled. Notes surfaced. Private messages contradicted public claims. Authority looked selective. Enforcement looked personal. The case widened. Attention followed. Neighbors listened. Leaders worried. Postures softened. Pressure reversed. Meetings became careful. Language turned legal. The board avoided him. He stayed courteous. He stopped arguing. He let paper speak. He let rules breathe. Time favored order. Noise favored mistakes. He chose quiet persistence. Each filing narrowed options. Each response revealed cracks. Control drained. Leverage grew. Balance shifted. Slowly, surely, a settlement proposal arrived. It offered pause, not repair. He declined politely. He asked for accountability, not silence. He asked for correction, not favors. The mediator noted reasonableness. The board requested time. He granted deadlines. Confidence steadied. Stress eased. The house stood firm. He stood firmer. Momentum mattered. Direction mattered. When hearings resumed, the judge focused sharply. Procedures were questioned. Motives examined. Authority measured. The HOA struggled. Explanations conflicted. Timelines collapsed. A warning followed. The court signaled consequences. Compliance was ordered. Enforcement paused. Retaliation barred. Relief spread. Neighbors exhaled. Eyes opened. Power recalibrated. The field leveled. Justice felt near. Real. He returned home, tired but calm. He watered plants, swept steps, cooked dinner. Ordinary acts grounded him. He understood endurance. He understood records. He understood courage grows quietly. The street felt lighter. Doors opened. Conversations continued. A community stirred. One stand changed many calculations. The fight matured. The end approached. That night, he placed documents away. He looked around. The house felt earned. He knew results would echo. The HOA would answer. Systems would change. Rent and rules would follow law. He rested with patience. Tomorrow promised resolution. He slept knowing fairness travels slowly, but arrives surely. Always, finally, enough. The decision day arrived quietly, without drama, without noise. He sat in the courtroom early, hands folded, breathing slow. The HOA lawyers arrived together, confident faces, matching folders. Board members avoided his eyes. The judge entered, and the room settled into stillness that felt heavy and honest. The judge spoke clearly. Procedures were reviewed. Notices were examined. Timelines were read aloud. Each skipped step sounded louder than the last. The HOA argued intent. The judge asked about rules. Silence answered. The judge asked about proof. Papers rustled, but answers did not land. The imbalance became visible. Then the ruling came. The forced sale notice was declared unlawful. Retaliation was confirmed. The HOA was ordered to stop enforcement immediately. Penalties were dismissed. Compliance was mandated. Consequences were assigned. The words landed calmly, but their impact shook the room. Control shifted hands. Relief moved through him like warmth. He did not smile. He simply nodded. This was not victory yet. It was validation. The judge addressed remedies next. Because the HOA had disrupted his quiet enjoyment, compensation was required. Because threats caused loss of peace, restitution applied. Because power was abused, oversight would follow. The HOA's counsel requested a break. The judge granted minutes, not mercy. In the hallway, voices rose. Board members argued in whispers that felt loud. Their strategy had failed. Pressure had backfired. They returned pale and careful. A settlement was proposed on record. The HOA would lease the home from him for community use restrictions they had created, paying rent above market value. The term would be long. The amount would be triple standard rent. The agreement would be binding. The judge asked if he agreed. He paused. He considered stability. He considered neighbors. He considered fairness. He accepted, with conditions protecting residents' rights and preventing future retaliation. The judge approved. The gavel sounded once. It felt final. Outside, Cameras waited. He declined interviews. He walked home under open sky, steady and quiet. Neighbors clapped softly from porches. Some cried. Doors opened. Fear loosened its grip. Days later, the first payment arrived. Triple rent. On time. It felt unreal, then practical. He set aside funds for maintenance, taxes, savings. He kept his job. He kept his routine. He kept his home. The HOA changed tone overnight. Emails softened. Notices vanished. Meetings grew careful. New leadership elections were announced. Rules were reviewed. Training was scheduled. Oversight remained. The house felt lighter. He repainted a room. He fixed a step. He planted flowers. Ordinary acts reclaimed meaning. He slept deeply for the first time in weeks. Neighbors began sharing stories openly. Patterns surfaced. Corrections followed. Fines were refunded. Apologies were issued. The community healed in small, real ways. One evening, he sat on the porch and watched lights turn on down the street. He thought about the yellow notice. It no longer haunted him. It had become a reminder. Power depends on silence. Fairness depends on voice. He did not feel rich. He felt secure. He felt respected. He felt rooted. The agreement protected his future. The outcome protected others. That mattered most. The HOA paid rent again the next month. And the next. Each payment was proof that rules must follow law, not ego. Each check carried a lesson. He smiled once, softly, to himself. Not from pride, but from peace. The fight was over. The balance was restored. The home remained his. And this time, the neighborhood felt truly quiet, for the right reasons. He wrote a short letter to neighbors, thanking them for courage and patience. He encouraged questions, meetings, fairness. He reminded them that rules exist to serve people, not frighten them. Change, he wrote, begins with reading, recording, and refusing to be rushed. When copies circulated, conversations grew calmer. Trust returned step by step. Children played longer outside. Elders waved again. The street felt shared. The lesson spread quietly beyond the block. People learned they were allowed to ask why. They learned deadlines can be challenged. They learned homes are not prizes. They are lives. And lives deserve protection. He kept the letter framed by the door, a promise to himself to stand early, stand kindly, and stand together when tested. No matter what happens. Years passed, but the lesson stayed alive. The agreement became routine, almost boring in the best way. Every month, the rent arrived on time. Triple the value. No excuses. No delays. The HOA followed rules carefully now, like students who had learned from a hard exam. The fear that once ruled the neighborhood faded into memory. He stayed the same man. He woke early. He went to work. He waved to neighbors. But something inside him had grown stronger. He had learned that calm resistance could move heavy systems. He had learned that patience could outlast pressure. He had learned that knowledge was quiet power. New families moved into the neighborhood. They heard the story in pieces, never fully, because he never told it loudly. Others shared it for him, usually in gentle tones, usually with pride. The story became local legend, not for drama, but for fairness. The HOA board changed completely. New members were elected openly. Meetings were recorded. Notices were clear. Warnings came with time to fix issues. Fear was replaced with process. That change spread beyond one street. Nearby communities reviewed their rules too. Quiet reform followed quiet courage. One afternoon, a young couple knocked on his door. They had received a fine they did not understand. He listened patiently. He did not speak badly about the HOA. He showed them how to read the rules. He explained how to document politely. He reminded them to stay calm. They left smiling, lighter than when they arrived. He realized then that justice does not end with winning. It continues through teaching. The house aged with grace. Paint faded. Trees grew taller. Seasons came and went. The rent agreement remained firm, written clearly, protected carefully. Lawyers checked it yearly. The HOA never challenged it again. They had learned what challenge could cost. Sometimes, he stood on the porch at dusk and remembered the yellow notice. He remembered the shaking hands, the sleepless nights, the ticking clock. He did not feel anger. He felt gratitude. The moment that tried to break him had shaped him. He also knew the outcome was rare. Many people still lost homes to unfair power. That truth stayed heavy. It kept him humble. It kept him attentive. He volunteered time at a local clinic once a month, helping others read notices and letters. He never promised wins. He promised clarity. One winter, A storm knocked out power on the street. Neighbors gathered together, sharing candles and food. Someone joked about the HOA charging for snow. Laughter followed. It felt normal. It felt human. It felt earned. The rent continued. Triple. Forever, as the agreement said. Not because he demanded revenge, but because the system needed a reminder. Rules must be respected. People must be heard. Homes must be safe. He updated his will, ensuring the agreement would pass cleanly. The house would stay protected. The lesson would remain documented. The paper trail would endure. When asked if he would do anything differently, he answered honestly. He would read earlier. He would speak sooner. He would still stay calm. Panic, he learned, feeds bullies. Calm starves them. On an ordinary morning, years later, he opened his door and felt peace. No notices. No threats. Just air and light. He smiled at the simplicity of it. The story did not end with applause or headlines. It ended with stability. With fairness. With a neighborhood that learned to listen. And somewhere inside those walls, the house remembered everything. It remembered fear. It remembered courage. It remembered patience. Most of all, it remembered this truth. Power can shout, but truth does not have to. The HOA kept paying. The home kept standing. And one quiet decision continued to protect many lives, long after the clock stopped ticking.